So today I'm going to take you through apartment hunting in New York City. I've watched so many of these videos on YouTube and have thoroughly enjoyed all of them and just wanted to document my own experience and look back on these fun times. I personally love apartment hunting, and I actually used to help my friends apartment hunt in the past. So I remember the first time I looked for an apartment. It was in Dallas, Texas. It was the first time I was living on my own, and I visited like 10 apartments and went crazy. I have since calmed down, but the process is still really fun to me. The apartments I will take you through today are all in Manhattan and located mostly near Bryant Park or Hudson Yards. We did look at a few in Chelsea as well, but I didn't document those since I kind of got tired by the time we got to them. So the criteria that my boyfriend and I used were the following. We wanted something that was modern, a newer building, close to the subway, had a 24/7 doorman, elevator, and washer and dryer in unit. We preferred an open kitchen, so one that was not separated, and a bedroom that could at least fit a queen-size bed. A lot of New York apartments have bedrooms that can only fit a full size, so that was a criteria. We preferred floor-to-ceiling windows, and I really wanted a south-facing apartment. The apartment we ultimately landed on is actually not south-facing, so we did end up giving up that trade-off, but I'll walk you through the process and how we came to that decision. Before going into each apartment, I will give a brief description, just so we're on the same page about all the pros and cons of the apartment. Cool. Without further ado, I will take you through the apartment hunt. So it was a very cold winter snowy day on the day we actually toured all of the apartments, and you will see that reflected in the views. But we gotta love New York winters, and there was something really cool about sledging through snow to visit all of these apartments and seeing snowfall outside. So the first apartment we toured was the building that we both had been eyeing for a while. It's pretty close to where Jackson works and is a very new modern building. The amenities are awesome. The gym is really large. It does cost an extra $175 a month to access all of the amenities, but for Jackson, it's worth it. For me, I'm still debating. But there were 3 apartments that we were able to tour that was within our budget. The budget we were working with was anything below $4,000. We made a decision to not really max out on rent, and we wanted to set up a goal of saving money for the next 2 years. So this apartment actually has, I believe, around 60 floors, and we visited the 4th floor first. This was a 1-bedroom with an open kitchen layout. All of the appliances are very modern, very new. It had 12-inch high ceilings, which we loved, and the bedroom was, for New York standards, considered pretty big. The closet space was okay and decent, but this did have a washer and dryer, and we loved the bathroom. All in all, we loved really everything about this unit, except that it was on the 4th floor, which is considered unlucky for Asian people. And also the view was quite tragic. But this apartment did go off market after we visited it, so as you can see, it was quite a good apartment. This building in general is pretty close to the subway, and sits right above a grocery store, which we were really excited about. So the second apartment was on the 12th floor, and this was just an example because the units that were available were on 12, 29, and 33, and there were a couple more. But this was actually a corner unit with plenty of closet space, pantry. The kitchen is fairly similar to the one on the 4th floor, but this one had a corner view, so more of the living room had windows instead of just the wall. The only caveat to this apartment is that all of these corner units are actually facing construction. So there's actually a very large building being built right next to the building, and the leasing agent did warn us about the construction noise. So as you can see, on the 12th floor at least, there's a huge unit. There's a huge thing being built next door. But again, there are washer and dryer in every unit of this building, and we loved how much space there was. Out of all the apartments we visited, this one had the greatest amount of square footage. Or this unit of apartments are all northeast facing, which in New York, if you want sunshine, I think what they say is you really want a south-facing apartment. However, when we visited, it seemed fairly sunny and fine. We also have plenty of lights, and because we went crazy with purchasing floor lamps. So we think it should be fine. Okay, switching gears now to a different apartment complex. This one is near Bryant Park, and the first apartment we saw was absolutely stunning. There was so much window, all floor to ceiling. The bedroom was huge. There was a little nook. Everything about this apartment was pretty awesome. The only downside to it was that the building itself is kind of old. The elevators are definitely have aged. The building is not new, but the apartments are more renovated on a as a needed basis. This apartment was pretty big. The only other downside is that I personally didn't like living in this location. Jackson loves Bryant Park, and so he found that to be a huge plus. But for me personally, this reminded me of my corporate days when I first moved to New York. And honestly, back then I would have killed to live here, except now priorities have shifted and changed. So I just didn't really feel inspired by the location of this building and kind of the memories that it reminded me of. So that was why I think we ultimately passed on it. The second apartment we saw in this building did not have floor-to-ceiling windows, but it was completely renovated very recently. So no one has lived in this apartment since it was renovated, and it is on a higher floor, so the view is a bit nicer, but you do lose some of that window space. Also, the last apartment did not have a washer and dryer, but this one does, so that was definitely a plus. However, I think because of the window, we just weren't that hot about this apartment. You'll see that the other apartments I visited in this building are all fairly similar to this second apartment that we saw. They all have very similar windows, maybe a different view, maybe a higher floor, maybe a washer and dryer here and there, and they were all more renovated. I think we ruled them out because of the window, but to be fair to this building, it had such glowing reviews. It was the highest rated out of all the buildings we visited at pretty much almost 5 stars. It's very rare to find a building in New York that only has glowing reviews. So this is definitely a testament to how great the management is. So the third building is one that was in Hudson Yards. It is really close to where Jackson works, and I had walked by it a few times as it was being built. You can see that it is absolutely stunning. It's brand new, it's modern. The kitchen is beautiful, the bathroom is beautiful. Just everything about this building is beautiful. It was super hard to decide between this building and the first building, to be honest, because with this one you had such a good view. It was south facing. It had every single thing that was on our list. The windows aren't technically floor to ceiling, but they're big enough, so we considered it similar. The only thing is that the apartment is a bit small, so we are both working from home. And we need room for 2 desks that aren't, exactly next to each other. We also wanted to have a dining table. We have a cat. And for all of the furniture that we have, which is honestly just basic furniture, there wasn't a lot of space in the living room to fit everything, as you can see. I think this would be great for people who aren't working from home and don't quite need so much desk storage space. And maybe, just having some basics fit in here, that would just be perfect. All of the units have washer and dryer. This building just honestly was great, and it was so tough to decide between the two. I mean, look at the kitchen counter space, the island. It was so big and just magnificent. But ultimately, we didn't want to be squished since we are home every single day now. And you can see that will tie into our final decision. The other thing about this building was that when I visited, there was no one in sight. And that was kind of odd for New York because, usually you'll see at least one, if not, 20 other people. So for this building, I was the only person in the lobby. I was the only person in the elevators. I did not see anyone in the amenities. And I think for some people that would be a definite plus, especially during COVID times where you kind of want to avoid everyone. But for me, it felt very isolating, and I felt kind of alone when I was touring this complex. So that is one thing. Also, there weren't that many reviews on Google for this building, and the reviews that did exist, a good majority of them were not great. So, take that with a grain of salt, because for new buildings, usually you only review once you hate something. I personally have never reviewed any apartment complexes I've lived in. So I did take it with a grain of salt, but that was a little concerning. So ultimately we decided on the first building that we visited. Jackson said it right. It was full circle. He told me when I wanted to check out other buildings that we would ultimately probably go with the first one anyways. And I will do an apartment tour after we've moved in and have settled with all of our furniture and decorations. But yes, we're both so excited. We're both cramped in a studio currently. But honestly, I've gotten used to the studio life now. So once we move, it'll be a good change.